in the university and director, Inter-University Consortium of Technology-Enabled Flexible Education at IGNOU. She has a Fulbright scholar in University of Illinois in 1999-2000, where she worked on multimedia courseware development. Professor Kanjilal is one of the national coordinators of SWAYAM, India MOOCs initiative, and Swayam Prabha, the educational DTH channels of the Ministry of Human Resource Development. She is also a principal investigator of the National Virtual Library of India project of Ministry of Culture. Her specialization includes e-learning, multimedia courseware development, ICT applications in libraries and digital libraries. She has been worked in various institutions of national importance, like IIT Kanpur, then IGNCA, and finally she is in the National Open University, IGNOU. She has also performed various international assignments, including the consultancy she has undertaken for Commonwealth Educational Media Center, SEMCA, consultant for scoping study to develop digital libraries in UNRWA, Amman, Jordan, developed 2 modules, for the Commonwealth Computer Navigator Certificate in Canada, Vancouver. She has, to her credit, a number of fellowships and awards received, including the Fulbright Fellowship, Manthan Award for e-education winner for e-GAN course, Australia-India Council grant, under which she has visited and delivered talks to finders, university and education in Australian National University and University of Canberra, ONIDA Fellowship, Copenhagen, Denmark, silver medal for the second best paper from IGNOU, and so on and so forth. She has, to her credit, research publications, authored 2 books, and published more than 32 research papers and several policy documents, which are very, very important with regard to e-learning and e-learning initiatives in the country. And she has memberships in various national and international bodies. And as I told you, she has been very visible and often referred resource person so far as this e-learning and distance learning is concerned. She has handled several research projects which are very important. Web-enabled training programs, WINASIS, a multimedia courseware on digitization, digital libraries as a principal investigator in Department of Science, Scientific and Industrial Research, DSIR. Then Sakshat project, you all might be knowing, One Stop Education Portal, official website of National Mission for Education through ICT, NMS ICT. She is a coordinator, Library Automation and Networking Project under NME ICT. She is a principal investigator under the Ministry of HRD. EDRP project, developing web hosting management systems and e-portfolio modules as a co-PI under Ministry of Human Resource Development. National Virtual Library of India, where National Mission for Libraries, Ministry of Culture, Government of India. The project is still going on, and she is also a national coordinator for the Swayam and Swayam Prabha. Now the Ministry of HRD and the UGC has been repeatedly appealing the universities and colleges to participate in the most important e-learning initiatives of the Government of India. Swayam, she is the principal coordinator, national coordinator for this project. With this brief introduction, I have the pleasure to welcome Madam once again to the Human Resource Development Center and this program of interdisciplinary course in environmental studies, and to enlighten our participants. And I'm sure they'll all be quite curious about to know about this e-learning initiatives in our country. Thank you so much, madam. Please carry on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Maharana, for such an elaborate. I almost read out the CV, perhaps. So thanks a lot. Good morning to all of you. Give me a moment. I'll just share my presentation. Yeah, my presentation is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Okay. So basically, today I will be talking about MOOCs and with special reference to SWAYAM and also on online education. If you see that, I mean, COVID-19 last year actually disrupted a lot of activities that we have been doing, and also similar disruptions we saw in higher education also. So it basically transformed the centuries-old chalk and talk teaching to technology-driven model. In fact, people were not prepared. I mean, all of a sudden, emphasis on online education came in, and everyone started talking about online classes, online delivery of learning resources, and so on and so forth. So that's a major disruption that happened. And it also called for a multi-pronged strategy to manage the crisis and build a robust education system in the country. So as I said, a lot of issues were there. People were not prepared. And especially when we talk about the faculty, it was a sudden change that we were asked to get adjusted to. And still this process is going on. Still colleges and universities have not opened. And people are, going on with the online education mode of delivery. And that's become the important difference that brought in last year. And if you see that, this is our snapshots from the Twitter account and Facebook account of the Minister of Education. In fact, it talks about, if you see that, emphasizing the importance of a lot of projects that the ministry has been doing over the years, and asking people to join in, use the educational resources that are there, talking about online education that is offered through NPTEL or through SWAYAM, talking about digital libraries, talking about, all other projects that were there. And in fact, if you see that during that period, there was a spike actually. If you see April, May onwards, a huge spike on these resources and the platforms that were there. This is a statistics collected from the ministry itself. So it shows, and now it has actually now stabilized, but people were not aware about these projects, and ministry has been sending letters to the universities asking people to join in, asking faculty to tell their students that these are the resources available, these are the platforms available, these are the online courses that are available, and they have to join in to that. So this brought in a big change. Now this also made us think of also that perhaps we need to change, and the possible digital interventions, that the new normal that we are going to face post COVID-19 situation, what are the possibilities, what are the interventions that we need to emphasize on? First and foremost is that we need to know what are the OER repositories available, both web and mobile based repositories. We need to let our students know about them. Then a lot of online courses available. Actually, MOOCs became a phenomenon since 2012 itself, and people started joining in fact, this large courses world over, and India also joined the bandwagon with the offering of MOOCs courses through the SWAYAM portal. So that's another important area that people need to know, that what are the possibilities and how best to adopt and adapt these online courses with the regular classroom teaching that is happening. Then there's another initiative that happened is in between, just a follow-up of to the Swayam, and which goes hand in hand with it. It is the Swayam Prabha project of the Ministry of Education. These are 34 DTH channels specific for different areas and for different levels of learning. That also needs to be, seriously taken note of, and needs to be integrated with the education process that are there. And also from 2018 onwards, we saw that there is an emphasis on online education came in. We got a guidelines for that. UGC issued guidelines, and then there was again a rethinking, and then revised guidelines came in 2020. So we need to see that how best actually online education became in thing, and a lot of emphasis from the ministry to go in for online education. That is another important area that we need to look. So let us have a quick look into the what are the possibilities, what are the platforms that are available that we need to look into. The first and foremost, I mentioned about the Open Educational Resources Initiative. This started sometime in 2002, in fact, with the Open Courseware Consortium that came in. So that's where the MIT's OCW that became very popular, and people started looking into the content that are there, and that saw a major thrust towards developing online repository of learning resources. So that was a major intervention that happened, and with a follow-up, we had number of other international initiatives which are very popular, like Open Learning Initiative of Carnegie Mellon, Khan Academy, UK Open University's Open Learn Initiative, OpenStax, OER Commons, Merlot. Merlot is another interesting area. In fact, another platform where you get a lot of multimedia content that are available. Then we have Kariki. This is a very, again, a very interesting platform. It's a wiki-based platform where you get open licensed curriculum, which actually you can, thousands of such curriculum available for different levels, for different disciplines, different subjects. Have a look into them. You can revise them, adopt them, adapt them as per your institution's requirement. So this is another area that is there. And then we have Wiki Educator for Commonwealth of Learning. This is again a lot of content developed under the project in COL. So these are some of the popular, and then many others also that joined it. But the best part is these are content that are available under the open license CC by S, mostly CC by SA, which means that you can reuse, repurpose for your requirement, distribute it to your learners. You can adapt it, you can transform it, customize it as per the requirement of your students, and create a new content out of it. So this is something that needs to be looked into. And India was also not far behind. In fact, in the Knowledge Commission report, it suggested the adoption of OER. And as a follow-up of this, we had actually this NPTEL project that started somewhere again in 2003. This was where we had this National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning, where IITs got together to develop a lot of web-based and video-based content for engineering students and science students, and very popular one. Then we had the Sakshat initiative, in fact, which started somewhere in 2002. It was basically meant to develop rich e-content. It started with the school level 11th and 12th standard in 2006, but later on emphasis shifted towards higher education, in fact. And this is the first time that we started talking about 4-quadrant approach of offering courses. Then we had virtual lab initiative led by the IIT Delhi, in fact, and thousands of such labs where, experiments were created, which can be adapted, and I think 1,200 institutions are not now using this virtual labs created by IIT Delhi and other IITs to a great extent. Apart from that, in a systematic manner, content development started for UG and PG level courses for non-engineering, and major projects were taken up by Consortium for Education Communication, UGC, IUC in fact, and they developed a lot of content for UG level courses, and EPG Pathshala, another project that was directly taken up by UGC to develop content for PG level courses. So we had somewhere around, and this became, in fact, 2009, we had the National Mission on Education through ICT, wherein a lot of fundings were done and major emphasis was on development of e-content, in fact. So UG level courses at the moment, we have somewhere around 87 disciplines covered by CEC, followed up with PG level courses around again 77 disciplines. Then another interesting project that was spoken tutorials. This was funded by NMEICT, taken up by IIT Bombay. Very interesting project where you have 10 minutes tutorials, especially teaching different kind of application tools which are used by students at different levels, open source applications that are there. And this was, again, thousands of this. And the best part of it is it's not just English. It covers, it's a multilingual platform where you have content available in almost all Indian languages that you want. Then this virtual labs, I mentioned about it, and many other such discipline-based content got generated. Now, the best part was that NMEICT adopted this open licensing policy guidelines in February 2014, and as a part of this, they came up with this OER policy, wherein all the content that have been developed under the funding of National Mission on Education through ICT became available as open licensed material under the CC license, CC by SA. Which means that whatever content that I have been talking about now, developed in India, these are all available as OERs. You can reuse, repurpose, adapt, adopt, whatever you want, you can just straight away take in. Why this is important is, if you look into the new guidelines that has come for the open online education, ODL and online education, it clearly talks that you can take 40% of the content that are already available as OERs, use for your own curriculum. So 60% an institution can develop themselves, and the 40% can be taken as OERs from different sources. Now, if we have a lot of content that are available, how to search them? I think National Digital Library initiative of IIT Kharagpur, again funded under NMEICT, was a major initiative which in fact helped us in discovering resources. So basically, it's not a simple digital library, rather it is a discovery tool which can be used to search content at different levels from different sources, in fact. So you need metadata, through metadata, for different disciplines, you can actually search through content, and it covers from school level to higher education, whatever you talk about. So these are the content that are available. But a lot of initiatives, as I mentioned, as e-content development happened, but it was felt that OER was not enough. I think realizing that it was not enough, the whole emphasis in 2012 started for developing massive open online courses. In fact, it was Stanford which came up with the courses, and which had some 50,000 to, millions of learners registering for these courses. So that was where we started talking about massive open online courses. The basic idea was to make an impact in socioeconomic terms. And when we talk about that, it is actually, we are always emphasizing about increasing the gross enrollment ratio. I think perhaps MOOCs was seen as a possibility which can be used for the purpose of enhancing the gross enrollment ratio. Then it also helps in reducing because brick and mortar institutions I mean, you have a limitation to that. So if you want to address large number of learners, I think perhaps MOOCs can be the only answer. So where in the emphasis started on MOOCs, in fact. And if you want to, I mean, and this was another opened up another possibility for human development, and especially skill-based courses could be offered through the massive online courses that are being offered to different platforms. So basically, if you see that we moved from OER to the massive open online learning, the emphasis shifted from resources to learning, from institutions to learner, from media to engagement, and from adopted to discovered. So basically, just adopting the content is not the scene. In fact, if you have a lot of content, let the learner discover the content, just guide them through so that they can learn on their own. That was the major move that we look into. Now, what happened over the years, if you look into the growth of MOOCs, it's changed drastically. And this is the statistics that I collected. So it was initially the October 2011 first Stanford first courses started. One was artificial intelligence, the other one was machine learning, and the third one was introduction to databases. And what do you see that the number of registrations, there were something around 160,000 or 100,000. I mean, it was basically started with million of registrations happening. But over the years, if you today see that we have 180 million students enrolled for courses that are being offered through 950 universities. This is a statistic till December 2020, in fact. With 16.3 thousand courses on offer and 1180 micro credentials and 67 MOOC-based degrees that are coming in. And you can see the all of a sudden there was a huge jump in the last year because a lot of emphasis shifted towards MOOCs when we were under lockdown, in fact. So this is something that you need to see. And if you look into the registration count, you can see that individual platforms that are offering, Coursera has somewhere around 73 million learners, edX something around 32 million learners. Chinese MOOCs, that is Zuetang's X, based on the edX, in fact, platform, it has 163. This is this platform started recently but picked up like anything in China. And then we have Udacity in 11.8 million, FutureLearn somewhere around 13.5 million. But Swayam also joined the bandwagon, in fact, over the years now, and it had somewhere around 18.9 million registrations. In fact, it has now crossed the 2 crore mark also. If you look into major changes we can see over the years that have come in, and these are the 6 biggest MOOC trends we can see. MOOCs no longer are massive. We talk about now even SPOCs, which are very specialized courses that are being offered. But though the platform used may be the MOOCs platform, so very closed group courses are coming in for different specializations that are there. A lot of emphasis on college credits, credentials, and degrees. When the MOOC started, it were more for self-learning and just self-knowledge, in fact. But now, gradually, the emphasis shifted towards earning credits, earning degrees, also using the MOOCs, in fact. A lot of regional MOOCs providers came in. I mentioned about China. We have Spanish, French MOOCs, all those things came in the market, in fact, over the years. And in fact, India also with somewhere around 2,000 courses that are being offered every year and every session, in fact, and gradually they're getting translated into 8 languages. Then we have decreasing number of standalone courses. Basically, when the courses started, they were simple standalone courses on particular topic, not related to any curriculum perhaps, but gradually emphasis shifted towards, courses which are part of a curriculum, standard curriculum, which can be combined, and which what people can combine and have some micro credentials or something like that. So that kind of development happened over the years. And now also we see that many of the courses which were earlier free courses, because MOOCs became popular because the courses were free. But now gradually they're becoming paid only courses, and paid only could be different at different levels. Maybe you go in for a self-learning that is free, but if you want a certification, you may have to pay. So this is the monetization that happened. In fact, 6-tier MOOC monetization. Initially, it started free, but once we started talking about certificates, talking about micro credentials or credit earning or going in for complete online degrees, the monetization process started, in fact. So most of this were paid only courses that gradually came in. A bit about the micro credentials. This is another major trend that happened. Instead of just, going in for a single course certificate, people started talking about micro credentials. Like you earn some credit from 2-3 different courses and have maybe a certificate, a specialization based certificate, or you have different terms were used. Micro masters, instead of going in for a complete MBA program, pick up some courses from, say, finance, 2-3 courses, and you have a specialization. And instead of a complete master's degree, you have a micro masters. That kind of an offering started being provided on the MOOCs platform. Then there were terms like nano degrees, and also such things came into being. So these are some of the micro credentials that are in the market today. Coursera talks about specialization, master track certificate, professional certificate. edX talks about X series, micro masters, professional certificate. Udacity uses the term nano degree. FutureLearn uses program, graduate certificate, graduate diploma, and then the Cadence, that's sort of French one that talks about a program degree. So we have something this with the micro credentials. In fact, Dhaval Shah, who runs this class central, he talks about a platform where we have micro credentials available, and this is where the whole idea is you earn credits through different platforms, combine them, and have a certificate available. This is, he called it as a second wave of MOOC. And this is the in thing that is happening. And in fact, gradually in India also, this is the way we are also going in. I'll talk about it a bit later once I talk about come to the SWAYAM part, in fact. Now, what is the pedagogy followed in the MOOCs? If you look into Stanford, they have something like, generally it's very common across the platforms, but there are some variations here and there. For instance, Stanford, you will have a video lecture, some reading course material, some assignments will be there, some quizzes may be there, and finally you have an exam. So basically what happened is, if you look into these platforms, they simply migrated from the campus-based didactic methods to directly teaching online environment. So basically whatever we have been doing in the classrooms, similar pattern has been followed. The only difference here is you are putting a lot of emphasis on the resources that you provide on the platform, and some kind of a flipped classroom kind of a situation where the teacher may not be directly available, but students do self-learning. So this kind of a situation, you get into. Udacity has lecture videos, quizzes, and homework assignments. Basically, they are not going in for long videos. They have even multiple short 5-minute topic-based small videos available, and then a discussion based on that. So, and generally these are offered into smaller units as a week's worth of instruction, then combined with some kind of a assignment or a homework that is there. Interaction generally happens through discussion forum, and that's very common across the MOOCs platform, in fact. And they have been using actually wiki for course notes, additional explanations, examples, extra material, extra readings that are required. Uh, it also provides a platform where actually instructors can make comments, but the pedagogical emphasis is on the self-learning, self-study. That is, you are asking for again a flipped classroom of a situation where learners do self-study, but the faculty is available both real-time or synchronously or asynchronously through the discussion forum as a facilitator, so guiding the learner. And then you can have, I mean, the platforms that the discussion forum could be actually threaded discussion using, I mean, topic-based discussion, or it could be informal discussion also, where the student can post in their ideas, thoughts, and actually a lot of interaction through asking questions, receiving feedback happening. For edX, if you see, students generally don't have interaction with faculty or earn credit towards a so what is happening is that I mean, basically these are self-learning courses. So when edX started, it was basically simple, smaller, standalone courses, not related to any MIT degree courses or anything like that. Very topical, very topic-based. So if you want to maybe specialize on an area, or you have to enhance your knowledge, that kind of a thing. But if you want a certification, you pay a particular a small amount of fee and go in through the exam that is there and get a certificate out of it. Then edX offers honor code kind of a thing, that certificate. I talked about micro credentials. This is another term used by edX also. If you complete a course, you get an honor code, and you get ID verified certificates. Then I mean, another important thing also, if you see into edX pedagogy, is a lot of emphasis on the learning analytics. Through the click of mouse, I mean, the data from the backend that is being collected, that is being used for the purpose of evaluation also. So how students are responding to the quizzes, how they are doing, how much time they're spending on the material, this gets actually captured at the back end, and this creates a learning analytics or a big data that we call in education, which are used also for the purpose of I mean, evaluation. And this is a specific I mean, edX brought in their platform, in fact, and now many are following. Just going through, I went through 2 courses from Stanford and 2 different platforms. This was a course that we had. So if you want, talking about the pedagogy, if you look into the platform, how it looks like, you will have some, I mean, modules divided into different weeks, in fact, or just modules. In fact, in a course will have somewhere about, say, 7-8 modules available. And if you look into each module, it will have introduction, activities, lecture videos, additional resources, ask an expert, discussion, etc. So introduction is basically the what goes into that module, and then taking you through, and also it talks about what activities you have to do within that module for the certification purposes. So this is how if you look into the kind of activities that are given, and this activity need not be happening on a single platform. It could be across different platforms also, but they are linked to the original MOOCs platform. Like here, if you look into clearly, it talks about watch the module video lecture, go through the co-reading material, go through, watch the read selected material as additional material that has been there. And then there is a facility to ask an expert. This could be again synchronous or asynchronous platform. You can actually interact with the expert who is available for that particular module and ask questions, or you can actually real time also the faculty may be available through some webinar or something like that where you can interact. Discussion forum is there, and then you have to actually you go through a video, maybe you have to review through, and then you post your review on the discussion forum, and then it can have other interactions with the peer group also. And then we have something like a Digo group also there, where you have to actually post resources that you identify on the particular topic and share with your peer team. So this is Digo is a social media where you actually bookmarking site where you can, and we were asked specially to register to that social media platform for this purpose. We were also asked to actually set up Twitter account, and so that we can, share our ideas and other things also in that. Generally, the videos are hosted on YouTube, and they will provide a link on to that. So you have something like a brief introduction about the video, and then the video available, and you have to go through for some discussion on that particular video. Then we had core readings. It's again OERs mostly. These are links are provided. So you have to actually just go through the material that is there. And what is happening at the back end also, because the analytics gets generated and it sees that whether you're really going through the material or not. So that was also used for the purpose of evaluation to capture the activities that as learners we were going through. Then we had additional resources also, listed like this. Then this is the discussion forum. No, sorry, this is the Digo group, in fact, where actually on the particular topic, you have to identify 4-5 resources, give a review about it, and then even actually you have to give comments on the resources shared by your peer team members also. This was the kind of activity that we were asked to do. In the Twitter, in fact, with the hashtag. So you must be asking how you get generated, actually linked. The Twitter account is a social media account, Twitter or Digo, whatever it is. But with the hashtags and with the different methods from the backend, actually it gets connected. So whatever activities you are doing on Twitter or on Digo is also getting part and parcel integrated with the MOOCs platform, and it's used as a purpose of evaluation as well. This is the talk to an expert. In this case, where we found that the faculty was not directly available in real time, but a short message in the form of a video, and then there were, you can ask questions actually, and which will be responded within 24 hours. So this kind of facility was provided, and this is the kind of discussion forum on different topics that are there. Threaded discussions were happening. These postings from the instructor, postings coming from the learners themselves also, and a lot of interaction happening on this. This is the kind of posting, that long postings that were there, and this is the analytics that was happening at the back end. So at the end of it, now the interesting part was that this course had 3 levels of tracking happening. If you complete this tracks, the certification is based on completion of certain level of activities, and based on that you get a certificate. So in the connecting track, you had to write 4 discussion forum posts, write 8 tweets, and then share 8 new discovered resources on Digo, complete self-assessment, documentation, completing the activities. The second level of track was evaluating track, which means that apart from the connecting track, you have to have additional activities. So you have to write evaluation of 4 course videos on your choice, identify 4 of the resources that are available, discovered, write a brief paragraph on that in Digo. Within the Digo group, comment on 4 resources shared by your peer team. Within the Digo group, like 8 resources shared by your peer team, complete self-assessment. So if you complete this, you get a certificate for the evaluating track. And the final was the highest was the creating track. So you have to do the connecting track as well as evaluating track activities. Apart from that, additionally, you create some kind of a digital object. It's not just creating, and digital object could be in the form of a website or an ebook or a blog or a video, slideshow, podcast, photo exhibit, whatever it is, create it. And I mean, but it should be the topic based on the course that is there. And write a forum post analyzing your project, drawing out the key issues that you have addressed. And also, I mean, a short write-up is expected on that, and complete self-assessment documenting your completion of that track. So and apart from that, you have to also, it's not just creating, you have to also review the projects of 5 of your peer team members. If you complete, you get something like a certification like this. So you can see this. These are certificates that are made available online after completion of the course. A similar certificate I got for the another course that was just a statement of accomplishment. The interesting part of this course was that the other things were similar, but here there was a platform which provided a facility where, as a learner, you can create your own groups, have discussion within the group. Now you can participate as a leader of the group, or you can be a simple participant. So if you are a leader, then you create a group yourself on a particular topic and ask people to join in, have discussions within you, and if you complete, you get a certificate. So if you see it, that it says so and so has successfully completed as team leader a free online course offered. So this kind of certifications are provided. So now coming to, actually, if you see, SWAYAM has picked up many of these important things that we saw, the pedagogy that are available, and I mean, in a similar pattern came up in a big way somewhere in work for this started in 2014, but basically it got launched first time in 16th November 2016. The first courses that were offered on SWAYAM was from November 2016. So initially when it started, it covered high school to PG level courses, in fact. And we have 9 partners at this, in fact, and we call them as national coordinators, or the 9 pillars that are there, offering courses at different levels. So UGC provides PG courses. NPTEL provides technical engineering courses, both UG and PG level. CEC, non-technology under the graduation degree, that under UG courses. Now actually CEC has taken over the responsibility of the UG courses, PG courses of UGC also. So whatever courses were actually taken care by UGC now is being taken care by CEC itself. IGNOU was given the role to develop courses in diploma and certificate level. AICT with foreign level courses or anything else that doesn't fit into any of the national coordinators, it's taken up by AICT. NCRT and NIM is for school level. IIM Bangalore for management courses, and NITR Chennai for technical teachers training program. With the launch in 2016, gradually, I mean, this SWAYAM is picking up. As I mentioned, we had somewhere around 18.9 million enrollments happening since the last session that we had. And if you see that, I mean, huge unique user registration happening over the 59 lakhs registration as such shows that the interest that is getting generated. Till date, I mean, last session it was 2,075 courses that were offered, and in fact, total course delivered till date has been 4,307 courses. So this is the big number that is happening, but the only concern is that though registration is very high, the people registering for examination is very low. And in fact, when we talk about credit transfer, that is also much lower. Another development that happened after this online regulations came in fact, and if you look into the online regulation of 2018, it clearly said that you have to offer your online courses for your online degree through SWAYAM. If you go in for your own LMS, then you have to have permission for using the LMS, and the technical committee will come and vet it and see if it is usable or not. Then only it will give you permission. So if you look into, in fact, 2019, they started to UGC started expression of interest. And for this purpose, in fact, on the SWAYAM platform for offering online degrees, the second vertical was created, which can be used simply as a learning management system where you can host your own courses. So any institution is interested in offering online courses need not bother about having infrastructure, servers, and other setup for running this thing. You have the SWAYAM platform, just request them and they will be hosting. So if your courses, programs get approved through UGC, you can think of SWAYAM second vertical as a platform where you can offer your courses. Only thing that we see is, I talked about the pedagogy that was followed in Stanford, Udacity, or edX, whatever it is. But in case of this SWAYAM, it's a bit different. In fact, we have been talking since beginning. In fact, when we started with e-content generation, talked about 4-quadrant approach, and this was carried forward to for the SWAYAM itself also. But there was a bit difference, in fact. So the 4 quadrants in SWAYAM is that first quadrant, you have video lectures. Now, if it is a 4-credit course, you need to have 20 hours of video available, then supported with 20 hours of e-reading, e-content, reading self-instructional course material, textbook, or whatever, ebook, or whatever it is that there, or it could be some OERs, open access material, content from open journals, articles from there, all those things is the second content. So which means that a 4 credit course should have 20 hours of video, 20 hours of reading material. And then the third quadrant is the assessment part of it. You have quizzes, you have assignments, problem solving, solutions, and all those things. Or you can put in some activities also. It could be a short project, whatever it is. So that is the third quadrant. Fourth quadrant is the discussion forum, the interaction part of it. So you can have it there itself. Another important thing was that in the SWAYAM, there is an emphasis. If you go for developing a course on SWAYAM, you have to also provide transcript for all the videos. This requirement came because after the transcripts are provided, all the videos get translated into 8 different languages. And then for completion of the certificate, for the certification purposes, there is a facility for termed examination. This is conducted through NDA, and the credits are offered by the host institution. Now, a quick look into the SWAYAM platform. This is how, if you go to the platform, you will see that the different courses through different institutions that are being offered. In fact, these are IGNOU courses. If you look into, we have been offering a number of courses that are there. Once you click on a particular course, you will find that it talks about, it gives you a brief introduction about the course, objective of the course, then the structure of the course, number of credits, medium and start date, end date, exam date, every details has to be provided. But most important part of this is the 2-minute video that is there, so which introduces you to the course. So actually, this is a promo video that has to be created for any SWAYAM course, in fact, and that is the first and foremost thing. If you're thinking in terms of developing a SWAYAM course, first you have to emphasize on developing the 2-minute video, because based on that 2-minute video, the quality of the video that you produce, decision on giving you the funding for development of the course will come in. So this is how the whole layout of the course is put in week-wise. Then within the course, you will see that week-wise how they have. And this is a platform that we have on Swayam, interface for the teacher to upload course content, to publish it and make it available. Announcements can be created. This is a facility for the announcement that is there. This is the facility how content you can upload, in fact, week-wise. So if you say add unit, every another unit gets added, then you have within the unit, we say for unit 1 is the week 1, then in that you can add lessons, assessment, programming assignments, subjective assignments. The whole thing is running on Google Courseware, in fact. So this is Course Builder, that Google Course Builder has been customized for the purpose of Swayam. Then this is the platform, interface, which is used for creating quizzes. You can have objective quizzes, subjective quizzes, subjective assignments built in. This is how you upload questions that are there. It could be multiple choice, then short answer questions. The subjective one, you have to set the parameters and all those details. And this is the platform where you upload the course content. But the important thing is, if you see that you have an interface which is user friendly, you can upload straight away text and all, but a bit complicated also. And if you have some knowledge of HTML, it helps, in fact. So you can do if some error, because cutting pasting is not that much easy on the course builder itself. So you have to, if you have a knowledge of HTML coding, then it helps you, so you can identify the errors that are happening. Another important thing is the videos that are there are to be uploaded on the YouTube and then linked on the Swayam platform. So the first task is, now an interesting part is when you are uploading actually course content, you can see that, sorry. So if you see that once you are uploading the content, in fact, you are not directly providing the thing. You have to just provide the link of that video coming from the YouTube channel. Other than that, for the text also, you have to put your content on Google Drive and then provide the link. So basically, Google Suite is being extensively used for that purpose. So basically, if you're developing a course, this is the template that you will have to consider about creating a weekly lesson plan. So basically, first decision is the content for the two quadrants that are there, the video and the text one, e-text one. So what goes into it? Decide whether you want to have videos, audios, you want other kind of multimedia, animation, simulation put in. Textual could be just the self-learning material that you have developed, or it could be linking to some OER or something like that. Take a call on that. Then second is you have to decide about the activities that go into it. That is whether you will be giving some discussion activities, practical assignments, or some kind of an assignment that is there. And third is the assessment part. Will it be based on just a quiz or a peer assessment or anything else that you want to plan it? So when you are actually creating a proposal for Swayam, these are the important aspects that you need to think of. You have to give a clear-cut idea exactly what content will go in, what activities you want to put in, what are the assessment methods that you will be following. As I mentioned, the transcript is the most important part of the content that is being generated, and this gets translated into 8 languages. In fact, from the next session, you will be seeing a lot of courses in 8 Indian languages coming in. These are all getting translated by the national coordinators. You will have Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Bengali, Gujarati, and Marathi. In fact. Now, talking about certification through Swayam, as I mentioned, these are all open courses. Anyone can actually register and go through the courses. But if you are interested for certification, then you have to register for term and examination. And this happens twice a year. For the January session, you have examination. In the second weekend of of May, and for the July session you have examination on the second weekend of November. So this is the strict structure that is followed, the strict timeline that is followed by the SWAYAM courses, though it got disrupted last year due to the COVID. But basically that is the structure that is being followed. The important thing is that the evaluation methodology followed is the ones which are aligned with the curriculum, standard curriculum that are there offered through the UGC or AICT. And generally, these examinations that are happening in a proctored exam conducted by NTA all over the country, and learners get certificate after clearance of both the assessment pass, that is the continuous assessment, and the term end examination, and a certificate is issued. Once the certificate is issued, they can use it for the purpose of credit transfer also. And for this, they have to go through all the assignments, quizzes that are there, and weightage is given. So this is a scenario of the the proctored examination that is being conducted by NTA. In fact, NTA is now also seriously thinking of remote proctoring, where learners can take exams from home also. They have been experimenting, and I think soon that kind of a facility will be also coming in. In fact, as course coordinators this time, the exam, in fact, question papers earlier, we were just sending Word files. Now this time we have something called a platform called eSulek, where we have to put in our question papers, in fact. And apart from that, in fact, this time another new change, we found that the evaluation that earlier was happening in the NTA, this time they gave us remote login, and as faculty we could actually evaluate online the answer sheets. So, and this has facility, because for the CBT evaluation, automatically result gets generated, but there are facility for pen and paper examination also. And in that case, actually the papers, the answer scripts get scanned and made available to the evaluator online, and you have to put in the marks there. So this is the kind of facility is provided. And after completion, this is the kind of certificate that is issued. Now, once the certificate is issued, this learners can take it to their institution, parent institution, and ask for the credit earned through this certificate for credit transfer. So if you look into that, we clearly mentioned in the certificate that so-and-so has completed 4 credit course on a particular this thing offered by the coordinator name and the national coordinator name. And signature is by the controller of examination of the host institution which is running the course. So it gets validated in that manner. Now, 50% now this credit transfer is being further extended to 40%. Now, which means that a learner registered in a particular institution can actually ask for credits to be considered for towards their complete degree. Of 40% of credit transfer that has earned through the SWAYAM courses. Now, quickly, I will talk about the SWAYAM Prabha. In fact, so these are 34 DTH channels. It's actually integrated. SWAYAM and SWAYAM Prabha go hand in hand. Why SWAYAM Prabha is required? Actually, SWAYAM Prabha provides you the last mile connectivity through the DTH channel.